for Flabonga, month-old vacuable. With Dayle and Tony breaking all the rules. Talking tech, biz, and straight up chaos. Quick fire guests, oh yeah, we slay those.
Love it.
Glad you liked it. Good afternoon. My name is Dayle Rodriguez, and this is Flabonga Month Off the Cube. And with me today, I've got Mark Lee for a second time. Hey, Mark. Thanks for coming back.
Hi, Dayle. Thanks so much for having me back. Love the new jingle. You didn't have that back in March when we spoke last time. And where's the last 6 months gone? Incredible.
It's been crazy. It's been crazy. So, funny story. We have a long-time friend / fan of the show, Mark Cowison. He's been on like 2 or 3 times. He's based up in Scotland, and he was like, Dayle, I can make you a jingle. By the way, he's not a musician, by the way. He runs, I'll say plant and machinery, that's not correct. He works in oil and gas and manual handling stuff. Anyway, he went, I've done this AI stuff, and I kid you not, live on the show, within 6 to 7 minutes, this man had gone to ChatGPT, made some lyrics up, put it into another system, and said, asked Tony and I for some prompts for the music, and it came out with that, and Tony and I both thought it was amazing, so we clipped it up. The bit you've heard just there is the abridged version. It's 20 seconds long. It's a full 3-minute song.
Oh my goodness.
I might release it to the charts and see if it makes, I'll say it's Top of the Pops, but Top of the Pops doesn't exist anymore.
I think A, that's unlikely. B, I'm not convinced Top of the Pops still exists. C, giving your age away.
Yes, I'm giving my age away. Thank you for coming back, by the way.
Thank you so much for having me. I thought it was unique. You just, in the first 2 minutes, you've already told me about somebody who's been on 2 or 3 times. So, I'm not as special as you were making out I was, but I don't mind.
I don't think I've ever called you special, Mark. I said I respect you. I don't think I've ever called you special. I said I respect you. I don't think I've ever called anyone or any of our guests special, ever, once. You're just a fan.
I'm always touched to be invited anywhere.
Speaking of being invited on podcasts, podultery, a word that I only learned today. What is this, Mark?
Yeah, well, I got accused. Earlier today, I was recording my weekly Accountant Success Secrets podcast with my co-host, Philippa Haynes. And she said, I told her I was coming on here. She said, you're committing podultery. So I thought, well, A, I know that's what I will be writing about on LinkedIn today. And B, I thought, well, I better find a definition for it. And there wasn't an obvious one. First thing I found when I looked it up was that Alistair Campbell talks about it a bit, or talked about it once in 3 or 4 places in Google. So I went to my trusty friend ChatGPT, explained what I thought it was, and said, give me some definitions. So at its simplest, it's the act of appearing on other people's podcasts whilst already being committed to your own. Okay. Or when a loyal podcast host, and we've been hosting the Accountant Success Secrets podcast jointly for over 2 years now, when a loyal podcast host strays onto somebody else's mic, I think there's something in that. And the audio equivalent of saying it didn't mean a thing. It was just a one-off episode.
But it wasn't a one-off episode. You come back for more, Mark.
Yeah, this is true. Well, the act of moonlighting as guests on other podcasts, and the one that I know neither of us thinks is appropriate. A breach of podcast monogamy, often involving alluring microphones and flirty hosts.
I lack the ability to flirt, Mark. Ask my girlfriend.
And what does that tell us about your life, Dayle?
I'm not very romantic.
Yeah.
To fix this, we need to have Philippa on. There we go. Then she can't j'accuse anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure she'd be delighted.
I will send her a DM. It will happen.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, okay. This popped into my head as you were speaking. So you mentioned your podcast has been going for 2 years, which is fantastic, by the way. Congratulations. Do you have any regulars, and do any of them make you laugh?
Regular listeners or guests?
Yeah, regular listeners.
We have 1 or 2. In fact, there's one in particular who I always have in mind, and we have a line as part of our introduction where we explain that we invite our guests to share the highs, the lows, and the secrets of their success, and we want to be of maximum value to you, our loyal listener. And it's always been in the singular when I've said
Yep.
that, because I know we have at least one loyal listener. But actually, what's fascinating is the number of people who say they've been listening since the beginning, or they've started listening recently. They've gone back to the beginning. They find them so inspiring, so interesting. They learn so much, which is so flattering. And our guest today said, he's gone back to the beginning. He said, and you can tell how much more professional you are now than when you started, which I'm sure he meant as a compliment. But Philippa and I, being the sort of people we are, immediately thought to ourselves, what you're saying is we were rubbish when we started.
You know what? I'm going to make a bold statement. Almost every podcaster who is not a professional presenter from the beginning is rubbish when they start. None of us were good. We're people who thought, let's give this a go. We started talking. The production quality wasn't great. Mine's still not the best either. And we waffle on sometimes. My good friend Sia Yesatonrat, she runs Brilliant Beam Media, right, over in America. And she's an amazing host. And her podcasts are amazing. She produces like 5 or 6, and she hosts on 2 of them.
Wow.
She's fantastic. She's great. She was really nice. A few months ago, she shared one of her very first podcasts, and by her own admission, it was diabolical. And I watched it, and I was like, I can't believe this is you now, and this is where you came from. Because honestly, it was not good. It was not good.
Fun enough, we had a guest drop out 2 or 3 weeks ago. It doesn't happen very often. I think it's happened twice. And because we'd just done one of our reflections episodes, which is where Philippa and I reflect on the last 4 interviews, we decided we couldn't do another one of those. So we just let a week go by. But in my weekly LinkedIn newsletter, I always put a reference to that week's podcast. I thought, I could just leave it blank, or I included a link to the very first one we did with a guy called David Frederick. Has David been on your podcast?
No, yeah.
He's a wonderful accountant. He's an ex-president of AAT. I'd like to say he's a good friend. He was a member of my inner circle. Now he's a member of my Soul Practice Club. Worked with him for years, known him for a long, long time. And he was the very first interview. And I thought, well, I'll share that. This was before I'd heard feedback today that we were rubbish, that we weren't as good at the beginning as we are now. But what I also did, I also took it as an opportunity to flag our Patreon account, because 2 or 3 months ago, we took the decision we would start recording podcast extras and generate other benefits for our loyal listeners through Patreon. So you can find us on Patreon at Accountants Success Secret, singular. So that's patreon.com, Accountants Success Secret, singular. Don't ask why it's not plural. Long story.
Your Patreon, I'm going to try and type that out. Accountants Success Secret.
Patreon.com/Accountants Success Secret.
I'll add
Singular.
Patreon. There we go. That's in the comments. That's gone to YouTube as well.
Oh, thank you very much. And what we've been doing for the last 2 or 3 months now is, after the end of the podcast, we get the guests to stay on, and we then put a couple of particularly intriguing questions to them, which are only available to our Patreon subscribers.
When you say intriguing, do you mean intriguing like FM intriguing, like stupid ones like we ask you, or genuinely good questions? Insights? Because I've asked you some dumb questions. I think I've asked you the biscuit question. Have I asked you the punch question yet?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, yes, you did, because I wouldn't punch anybody.
Not even a fictional character.
I think we did eventually find somebody I would punch. I couldn't remember who it was, and it certainly wouldn't come straight back. No, the 2 questions are essentially: what's the greatest challenge you're currently facing in your practice, and what are you doing about it? And secondly, what's your attitude to embracing AI or resisting AI in your practice? And I have to say, today's guest gave particularly, I was going to say, unusual, informed answers to both those questions. And we like to think that those questions and answers, coming smoothly as they do after the podcast itself, are worth subscribing to our Patreon account.
Okay.
because
Cool.
it's something extra, and it's for people who've already heard the podcast, so they know that our interviewee is worth listening to.
You know, we also have a Patreon, and I just completely forget to plug it every single time. We have one subscriber, one loyal subscriber who's been supporting us. The only difference is that there's nothing really hidden on our Patreon. It's just like, hey, if you like the show, we want to up the production values,
Yeah.
give us some money.
Well, we have naturally got the 3 levels.
Yeah.
We've got the £2, £6, and 26 quid or something. I can't remember.
Same, because I wanted to make it something like £1, but Patreon don't let you do anything lower than like £3 or something like that for whatever reason.
I think it's $2, I think.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, I'm gonna circle back to the challenge in practice and AI because that's some great topics. Just gonna jump
Yeah.
into the comments because we don't actually have more than one loyal listener, by the way. So I'm gonna read out the comments.
How
So
wonderful.
we've got Mark Cowison, the writer and author of the FM jingle. I
Oh,
think he
wow.
wants royalties, but we don't make any money, so we can't get any royalties. But he said, Mark Cowison, good afternoon, Mark Lee, aka Taxman 3000, the futuristic defender of digital finance. That's cool. That's very cool. We got Marcus Batson. David Frederick is a great guy. You should get him on. Okay.
Yeah.
If one of you guys could make an introduction, that'd be great.
I agree.
Then we got Sam Green, David Frederick, Mark Lee. Can you only go on the podcast if you have 2 first names? Which is ridiculous because Sam's been on the show. Like,
Love that.
Okay, let's talk business for a little bit because obviously I could wax lyrical on foolishness all day. I was at an event with Sage yesterday. They invited me to go on the Golden Hind. It's a very cool event. Thank you, Phil Hobden, for having me, and thank you, Sage. One of the conversations, the topic that came up was challenges in practice, talent shortage, and there were 2 extreme camps. So a couple of people are like, there is no talent shortage, it's a culture problem, and some people saying, well, no, within the next 5 years, 30% of the seniors in almost all accounting firms will have been retired based on age. Where do you see the talent shortage? Is there a talent shortage? Is there not a talent shortage? Or is it kind of a mismatch of things coming together?
It's always been a struggle to recruit the right people. And I haven't had to recruit anybody for 20 years. So I can only sort of echo what I've heard or interpret what I've heard. And I think for the larger firms, one of the challenges is making the role sufficiently attractive for the people you want to recruit. Yeah, I will answer the question in more detail. I'll just let my subconscious dwell on it. But I'll take you back to when I was a partner at BDO many years ago. I remember didn't quite get to a stand-up fight, but I made the point over. This was in the days we had a partners' dining room, and stupidly, a number of partners were in there every day when we should have been out, with clients or hustling for clients or whatever. But I remember having this conversation and saying, I think BDO has a lot of people who trained and qualified with the firm, stayed with the firm, have become partners, and that's great. But these days, the best people tend to move jobs when they qualify. There's that much more pressure to change firms when you qualify. The recruiters come straight after you. A new firm doesn't know what you've done wrong, so what's been holding you back? So the best people move when they qualify. So I suggested, this is what I was saying 25 years ago, 28 years ago, whatever it was. I said, it would be cheaper for us to allow the best graduates to go to the big 4 firms than to fight to get them to come to us for their training contracts, given that we don't want them all to stay when they qualify, and that we might be better served by trying to recruit them in from the bigger firms after they're qualified, or even from the smaller firms. So they've got their experience. And I was told, no, we can't do that because then they won't have been trained the BDO way.
Okay.
And I don't think I'm speaking out of school, given how long ago this was, because things will have evolved and changed enormously since then. But I still maintain that these days, if you're looking at the future of the practice, you want people once they've qualified. And depending on the size of your practice, you might not want to invest so much time and effort in trying to get your trainees to qualify, stay with you, and come through as partners. You can invest differently. And I think one of the things that AI is going to do is to reduce the need for all those trainees anyway, because or allow trainees to be doing more valuable work, more interesting work early on. And shouldn't we all be encouraging that? Because how ridiculous, and I think I may have had this in mind when I was at BDO and the other top 20 firm I was with before then. And I also saw it at what was then Touche Ross, now Deloitte, shortly after I qualified as an accountant and moved there to start my tax career. But all the time, you'd see graduates coming in and being asked to do the photocopying and tedious, mind-numbing work and being frustrated by it. Now, obviously, that doesn't happen in quite the same way now as it did back when I started my career. But there's still that challenge to get junior people with limited experience being valuable and profitable ASAP. And AI, I think, is going to be a great enabler of that. And is there a talent shortage? There may be, because there are more opportunities for people to consider. I tend to feel a lot of the time, though, we're comparing apples and pears. See, even if you go back to the 90s, but certainly if you go back to the 80s or the 70s, the range of opportunities available to graduates and non-graduates wasn't limited by your imagination. It was limited by what you knew. It was limited by your careers advisors. It was limited by your family and friends. And if you wanted a good business qualification, if you wanted a good profession, accountancy was right up there.
Yep.
Now, and I know the ICAW have recently launched the new ACA qualification in order to make it that much more attractive, because I suspect the accountancy bodies and the profession generally have tried to ride on the success of accountancy being a top profession as it was in the past.
The prestige.
Without recognizing we have to promote it as a really rewarding, interesting, exciting profession to compete with all the other opportunities that everybody is much more aware of now than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. And the thing with AI, I agree with what you say. I think it will stop people having to do some of the dog's body work, or having to pay some of the dues, as it were. Like, when you're intern, when you start, you have to do some sucky jobs. It's the rite of passage thing. But I think the problems with it is, if you look at certain media outlets, or if you Google, for example, which jobs will be reduced by AI, one of the top three are like bookkeeping and accounting. And I would argue that result comes from a place of ignorance. So you've got people outside of the industry saying AI is going to make it, and you've got young people going, well, I need to have a job. And then you've got certain media outlets saying you're not going to get a job because of AI. So, well, actually, no. It will actually make you more specialist. That's my opinion on that one.
I 100% agree with you. Professor Richard Susskind wrote a book 20 years ago, I think, on the future of the professions. And I wrote a blog post that challenged some of his predictions insofar as they related to the accountancy profession. And I have enormous respect for Richard Susskind and for his son, who sort of followed him into that world. And there's an updated version of the book, a new book. But they are both, as are most commentators, working on assumptions as regards the work that accountants do in practice, and the work that the accountant needs to do, and the work that clients are paying for. And I think a lot of the large language models, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, are reflecting what other people are saying, which is not necessarily based on fact. You need to talk to people within the accountancy profession, and you will get two schools of thought. One is AI is not trustworthy, AI hallucinates, AI is rubbish, all of which is true to a degree, but that's AI today. AI will never be as stupid in the future as it
Correct.
appears to be today.
By its very nature, that's the purpose of it. It's supposed to be self-learning. So in 5 years' time, it's going to be X times better than it was today. Don't know what that time will be, but it will be better. So yeah, that's the very nature of AI.
Also, a lot of the people who complain and criticize the results they get from AI are treating it as if it's a magic trick almost, and that they expect it to be able to read their mind. And I've long maintained that, and I got this from somebody else, if you think of any of these large language models as being a bright teenage intern, very keen to please the boss, but with full access to the internet, but not necessarily a broad enough understanding to be sure as to what they're generating is right, and tempted
Preach.
to make things up to please the boss, then preach.
Yeah, I'm supporting you. Keep speaking truth. Go for it. Keep going. Keep going.
Then you will have a better understanding of how a large language model works. And actually, it's a bit like when we don't get the results that we want from a human young intern who operates like that. Whose fault is it? Is it the intern's fault for wanting to please us? Or is it our fault for not having learned effective principles of delegation, instruction, request, get what we want? Of course it's the latter. And one of the reasons so many people complain about AI is they haven't learned how to intelligently prompt AI to get what they really want with the constraints that they want. And we can assume that, and frankly, GPT-5 in thinking mode is so streets ahead of the original ChatGPT 2 or 3 or whatever it was we had 3 years ago. And the rate, the pace of development is just absolutely mind-blowing.
Definitely. Going to jump to the comments again. Catherine Freeman, she's saying hi. I assume that's how she's saying it. It's HIIII. I assume it's nice hi. And she's also, again, backing up what you're saying. Catherine Freeman, it can be so biased too, depending on the information put in. Hopefully it will improve. Just to people who are watching and listening, if you do have questions for Mark, please fire them away. I might not read them because if they're not appropriate, I won't read it. But yeah.
Well, I know just on that point that Catherine was just making, when I started trying to generate images to support my talks, inevitably, if you asked it for a picture of an accountant, it would give you a white 30-something guy in a suit and tie. So, and I did a talk at the ICB Awards last year, which was 6 months or 18 months after I'd done a similar but longer talk at Accountex about the future for accountants in a world of AI. And I used a device where I talked about, I went forward in time and showed an accountant 5 years down the line in doing various things. And the first time I did it at Accountex, I could not get ChatGPT, which I know is not the best one to use for images, but I couldn't get it to give me the same accountant, the same person each time. By the time I updated it for ICB and subsequent talks, if you've got a set description, you can ask it to then show the same character. But my set description was things like mixed race, casually dressed, middle-aged, grey hair, and I wanted it to be, particularly for the ICB, I wanted it to be a woman, so I said size 14, because if you asked it for a woman, it was always a slim, almost nubile person, which was just not appropriate for my slides and the environment. Again, when I tried to do that 18 months earlier, I lose track of time now. It just could not do it. Now it'll give me whatever size, shape, color person that I want. which is much, much, much better. And how much better is it? It's going to keep getting better. So exciting.
We've had a very important question come from one of the viewers/listeners. So good that we're going to have to zoom in for it. From Mark Howison to Mark Lee. Mark, who is your favourite magician, Paul Daniels or Sooty? Izzy, Wizzy, let's get busy.
Yeah. Well, I have to admit, I had the pleasure of meeting both Paul Daniels on 2 or 3 occasions. And for younger listeners and viewers, Paul Daniels was a top TV magician in the 1980s. Sooty is a glove puppet, originally voiced and manhandled by Harry Corbett, then by his son Matthew Corbett, and now by a magician, Richard Cadell. Richard's been running Sooty for a long time. But I took my kids to see Sooty at a local theatre some years ago, and we went back into the changing room, got pictures with Sooty and his handler at the time. I also sometimes think I am to blame for Matthew Corbett retiring and selling Sooty because my son, when he was 6, I think, we took him to see the Sooty show in London. I think we were sitting in the front row or near to the front row, and you're invited to send in questions or birthdays or whatever. And you put them in during the break in the middle, and Matthew Corbett goes through them afterwards. They will go into a bucket. And I said that it was my son's birthday, and I was a magician, and no, I was an accountant and recently retired magician. Something like that. And Matthew Corbett read it and went, it got me to stand up, and he said, "Gosh, you're young to be recently retired. Maybe I should be thinking about it too." And 6 months later, he'd retired and sold Sooty. I told this times. I suspect the plans were already in motion.
Yeah.
But I like to feel that I had a hand in it.
I used to have so many Sooty videos on VHS with Matthew as the host. It was fantastic. Sooty, Sweep, Sue, the whole gang. It was great. I used to love that stuff. And in fact, I think we found a Sooty fan in Catherine Frimond, because she has put in all caps Sooty. And then also, you can go to Sooty Land. It's the best. Catherine, where is Sooty Land? Where is this? I can Google it, but I want you to tell me.
I can also tell you that when I was treasurer of the Magic Circle, which I did for about 7 or 8 years, I was thrilled that during my tenure, nothing to do with me, but during my tenure, we admitted Sooty as a member of the Magic Circle, which was really important. Paul Daniels, back in 1980, I was with my then girlfriend, now wife, and we'd gone to see the Paul Daniels show in Bournemouth. We were staying away, and we went to see the show while he was on, and I positioned my wife, who was an attractive young lady, at the end of the row, saying he's bound to ask for a volunteer, so you'll be well placed for that. And in those days, she was willing to do it. I think she's hated me for it ever since, but he didn't. He had this standard bit of shtick where he does a trick did a trick with 3 ropes, throws them out into the audience. I caught one, and a few minutes later, he asks for a volunteer, preferably somebody holding a piece of rope. And he chose me, and I went up on stage, and I was wearing my Magic Circle lapel badge, which he obviously recognised as a member himself. We'd never met previously. So he took me to the front of the stage, explained to the audience that I was a fellow member of the Magic Circle. We'd never met, and he really wanted to get me off stage and get a real lay person on stage. Yeah. But nobody would swap with me. Well, I was on stage, and he was stage whispering to me at various times the tricks that we were doing, or that he was doing. It was great fun. After the show, my wife and I went backstage to the stage door, and I went to apologise to him that he'd got me, and I'd explained that I put my wife at the end of the row. And he invited us to join him and his girlfriend for dinner that night.
That's lovely.
So we went out for dinner with him.
What an amazing story.
There's a key part of this story, which I didn't tell, which is we went to see the show after we'd been out for an early dinner. Um, but I
You
wasn't
can't
going
turn
to.
down the opportunity. You can't turn down the opportunity.
Yes,
When
you could.
someone that like that invites you
Yeah.
for a meal, even if you're fully stuffed, you're
Well,
still going.
fortunately, I wasn't, and I managed to eat another meal. And
Champion.
my wife struggled, and Paul was, and it was just a wonderful stories. But he was teasing me because she was saying, yeah, Mark doesn't want me to eat too much, wants me to lose some weight or something like that, and he was telling me off for having that paternalistic attitude. But long remembered it. Long as the question was, who was my favourite, Paul Daniels or Sooty? Paul,
Yeah.
because he was real, but there are other great
Wait, are you
magicians.
telling me City's not real?
Sooty is real, but he needs
The
somebody else's
illusion is
help.
broken. You've broken
Yeah,
my heart.
yeah.
So
Um,
jumping into comments again, Catherine has just told us that City Land is in Devon. She also says,
yeah.
Mark, we have a lot to discuss as City fans.
Oh, awesome! I love it.
So this is where my crazy mind goes. Next question. Famous British bears, Rupert, City, or Paddington, who would win in a fight?
Rupert,
You think Rupert would win?
yeah, because he's bigger than Sooty and bigger than Paddington, and Paddington's a big softy.
You know, okay, you're basing it on size. Okay, that's good
So
logic.
and I used to read Rupert the Bear books when I was a kid, and it always looked more likely to get into a scrap than Paddington or Sooty.
Okay, sorry, I've got two comments who've come in. First of all, Catherine saying, "Excuse me" in caps. I don't know why this is. Please elaborate, Catherine. And Mark's actually come in with a question, which I think is quite poignant. Oh, she disagrees with me. That's why she's saying excuse me. She says Sooty beats Paul Daniels.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
they're both. They're both.
Catherine is that much younger than me and won't have seen Paul in his heyday, perhaps.
So I remember Paul Daniels being on so many different shows. You're right, the 80s, like just phenomenal performer, amazing. Mark's come in with a serious question. So let me just double check this first. Oh, controversial question. A little bit loaded. Here we go. Mark Howison. If AI can do every accounting task better than a human, what are students actually learning at the university right now?
I have absolutely no idea, but when I do my talks about accountants winning in a world of AI and the future for accountants, I make the point that it's not the technical skills that are so crucial. Important though they are to understand basic accounting concepts, but it's your interpersonal skills. And accountants of the future will spend more time having conversations with clients and getting clients to have confidence that the advice they're getting makes sense than they will actually be doing the day-to-day paperwork and the compliance work. And if I go back to when I started, we started learning about T accounts. Do you remember T accounts, Dayle?
I know of the T accounts. Yep.
Yeah, but these days, and I don't think for some time, trainee accountants have been learning about T accounts as such. But you do need to understand some of the technicalities. But essentially, all we're doing here is saying that the accountant will be much more advisory focused, and accountancy may well appeal to a different type of person going forward, because I think it's fair to say some people who go into accountancy or who went into accountancy did so because they felt they were good with numbers and less good with people, and they wanted to be able to deal with the compliance paperwork. There's still a role for those people now,
100%.
but the sort of archetypal introverted accountant who doesn't want to talk to clients is going to struggle to generate business in a world where AI can do a lot of the work but can't engage with the clients in the same way.
Yep, I'm going to also answer this question as well. First of all, I'm going to go a little bit political. I would say don't bother going to university to most young people. It's a waste of
Yep.
time and money. Get an apprenticeship. My firm, Creston Reeves, doing a bit of promo, they do apprenticeships. Every year we get 20 to 40 young people who save 30 to 40 grand in debt. They learn a
Absolutely.
trade, they learn a skill. At KR, we still make our teams learn using T-sheets just so they know the background stuff and then they see and appreciate the value of the tech. So I'd say don't go to university anyway. And to echo what Mark said, and I've observed this real world. Mark Howson speaking to you directly, good sir. The AI can do stuff. It still takes a human brain to interpret the data and say that's correct, and the knowledge and understanding. And I've seen it with some of our partners in our firm where they've got 20, 30 years of experience, and because they understand the core principles and some of the complexity, especially in tax, they can go, that is correct. Second thing, I don't think, and I'm happy to be corrected on this one in years to come, any software or tech company who builds an AI model, especially for accounting or legal services, will ever take full liability or responsibility for the information that AI provides. They will always say, I want the liability to go on a person who is qualified or who's got the insurance for it. And that will always be legal professions, accountants, it's always going to, or quantity surveyors, people who've got professional services, there will always have to be a person that goes, that is correct. I'm putting my name or my insurance liability to it. So as Mark kind of said already, the accountants who will be good are the ones who know the basics, can actually go, actually, no, that AI is hallucinated, or that's not quite right because this AI is not up to date just yet. And this is my interpretation of it, because what a lot of people don't realize, accountancy, there's so much interpretation, even within the non-grey areas. I'll give an example. I use it when I train some of our students, right? Again, as a non-accountant, I've got a friend of mine. He owns a garage, right? He also resells tools as a part of his side business, and it's under the same limited company. He can buy, I give an example, 20,000 spanners, right? A couple of those spanners are going into his mechanic shop, where he will use those for the next 15 years. Technically, and some of these are very expensive tools, by the way. So they're actually an asset for the business. They're not stock, and I know that because I know his business. And you could argue that AI might learn that, but ultimately an AI that hasn't been trained properly won't know that. Now, I know that because I know his business. And that's the difference, where a person will have to look at it and go, well, how do I treat this particular asset or this transaction? I know that because I'm the person and I know the business. And AI might get to that level, but again, my friend will always go, Dayle, I want you to check it because you're the person in charge of this. Crude example, but yeah.
I think, yeah, I've been banging on for years in my talks for accountants. I've been talking about what I reference as key business skills. Yeah, some people call them soft skills. I've been stressing how important they are. They will be increasingly important in a world of AI, where we have to engage our clients, help them understand that they can't rely on the AI without the confidence of an accountant who knows what they're doing and is able to engage well. But also because a lot of the advisory software out there is going to be used by business advisors and business coaches because they've got access to it as well. And if accountants haven't developed the skills to promote, to pitch, to price advisory services where they're using the same software, then if they can develop those skills, then they will be much more effective, much more valuable than a business coach who's got access to the same tech. But remember, those business coaches have been developing their business skills, their key business skills for selling, for promoting, for pitching, pricing for years. And accountants have actually got to catch up a bit with that.
I've been saying this ever since I joined the industry. I said some accountants are not particularly good at sales and they need to be better at sales. The reason being, I've seen business coaches and mentors coach and mentor businesses and they don't understand the numbers, right? I'm not saying you have to be an accountant to give advice, but you need to understand profit and loss and a TB at the very least to give decent advice, to actually give it's the position of a business. And my logic was accountants have access to this information. They have the details that any salesperson or retail entity would want to give advice on. Accountants already have it. It would make sense for an accountant to do that, but most haven't. Now, obviously, that is changing. Advisory is coming in such a big way, but your accountant already has all the details they need to give you and predict and forecast on your business before any other business consultant would, because you've already given them the data. So I see it as an obvious. Accountants need to be doing more of it. And to go back a step as well, again, compliance is not dead. Some people say it's dead. It's not. I've got some amazing colleagues who are just so tactically, strategically compliance-minded. Again, they're phenomenal and they're great. And that comparison, that teamwork where you get with someone who's very dynamic and someone who's very technical coming together, gold. But
yeah, 100% agree with you, Dayle. I've been debunking the idea that compliance is dead or dying. I know since at least 2009, because that's the first blog post or article I can find where I said it. Every year there's a new commentator or a new supplier or new tech developer who repeats the old mantra, compliance is dying, compliance is dead, you've got to move into advisory. Yes, it does make sense to become a better advisors to clients, but not because compliance work is dying, but because the perceived value is falling, because there's all those adverts out there saying that it's just a touch of a button. We know there's more to it than that. And again, our accountants developing the skills to convince and satisfy their clients that they are doing more than just pressing a few buttons when it comes to using the tech. These are crucial skills that accountants need to have in order to retain work and, more importantly, to win work in the future. Because if you've got a great relationship with your clients now, those clients may not leave you. They already know, like, and trust you. But it's going to be increasingly difficult to win new work from people who don't yet know how valuable an accountant can be, or whose previous accountants seem to be much like you. And that's why it's so crucial to look at your skill base beyond the technical stuff, which is important. But when it comes to being successful in the future, to either running your own practice or being a partner in a firm, crucial to have those wider business skills as well.
Thank you to Mark Cowison for such a good question. Mark Cowison,
Yes.
LHR Marine. He didn't pay me to say that. He's just a nice guy who often listens to the show. Again, there's a lot of comments this week, I think, because I asked what's happening. So Sam Green, he's asked a question. Sam Green, will you both be at Accountex next week? What are your feelings towards the current lineup of accounting events?
Sadly, I won't be at Accountex next week because it's a difficult date for me. I couldn't make it. So the Accountex North, to be clear, this is in Manchester.
Yep.
And it's always a question for me: can I travel up to Manchester from London for the day? I tend to limit myself going long distances to those events where I'm going to be on stage, frankly. And having received my outstanding contribution award from,
let's zoom in for that one. Hold on. There we go.
From Accountex last year, 2024. I don't think I can really top that. Although I did speak, I had a masterclass at Accountex 2025, which was great. So
I
no,
won't be there either. Sorry,
No.
I'm actually doing client work for once. I'm actually on site with a client in Ipswich on that day. I'm not going from my house to Ipswich to Manchester. That's not happening. So,
I can understand that. I think the big issue with the accounting conferences events is having them spread around the country, because not everybody wants to come into London. So I really applaud Accountex for running a one-day event in Manchester as well. FAB, the Festival of Accounting and Bookkeeping, run by SIFT, who run Accounting Web, that's in Birmingham.
Yep.
And they're all different styles of events as well, which I think is a good thing. And
alternate events, they're in the kind of like in the lower Midlands, I guess. Yeah.
Aimed at the top 300 firms rather than sort of the thousands that the others really target. And I can say this because where I am in my career, but in my experience, accountants want to hear more from other accountants who've been there, done that, than they want to hear from commentators and people outside like me. I think that's important. I think there's also a degree to which some organisations running events engage the same faces, which is good because people will go and hear Rebecca Bennyworth or Paul Aplin, for example. Some might even come to hear me. There is a challenge when you do the right thing and bring other people on that people haven't heard, that many accountants haven't heard of, because there are three factors. There may be, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. There are at least three factors that determine whether somebody will go and listen to hear you, me, or anybody else speak. One is, do I recognize the name? Is it credible? Do they have experience that I want that I want to learn from, and what are they going to be talking about? Is that of interest to me? And a lot of the time, the focus is only on that third one, the title, and not everybody organises their talk to match the title, and sometimes you therefore attract the wrong audience, or you don't attract the people you really want to be there. It's something I work very hard on, hopefully credible and experienced in the areas that I speak about. If I've got a title, that is my title, that is the focus of what I'm doing, because I will often end my talks with, I hope that was of use, I hope that was of value, and I hope that going forwards you will be able to, whatever it was that the title was.
And that's
Because the
why I like
talk-
hearing you speak, by the way, because
thank
some
you.
people don't do that. And I always say, whenever I get invited to speak, I always go, okay, what is a tangible takeaway? Whenever I'm on a panel, what can I say that I have done or not done that someone can also do? Because I genuinely dislike it, not naming names or blaming anyone else. When I go to a panel, I listen, and they talk about their experience, but they don't give anything away at the end. They don't go, wait, you could do this. I'm not saying you have to do what I do, but I'm saying this is what I did and this is how it worked, or this is how it backfired. That's always helpful. So whenever I speak, and I notice when you do it, you say, this is what I tried. And at least people can go, oh, I can try it. And people just waffle on and don't give any advice. I'm just like, well, that's not particularly helpful.
I'm very lucky that when I do speak, and I do more webinars than I do on stage stuff now, it's never just the stuff from my head or the stuff that I've read. I will reference the dozens of accountants we've interviewed on the podcast, the dozens of accountants I've mentored and spoken to who are members of my Soul Practice Club. So I'm a conduit, if you like, for other people's experiences, tailored in a way that makes them relevant, timely, topical, and informed for my audience, whoever that is.
Speaking of audience and your Soul Practice Club, LinkedIn, videos, and other social media outlets. We kind of discussed this in the pre-prep, but like, what are your thoughts on these? Why should accountants be doing things outside of LinkedIn, or why have you started doing things outside of LinkedIn? That's 3 questions in one, I know.
So LinkedIn's my online media of choice. I often reference it as being best distinguished from social media and recognized for what it is, which is an online business networking platform. It's a fantastic resource for accountants if they've got clear objectives to identify and engage with potential influencers, people who could introduce them, or prospective clients. A lot of the time, people assume, because they're believing the hype, that you post stuff on there. Like imagine you had a big billboard outside your house, and you could put whatever promotional material you like on it. Great, but who's coming down your street to read it? It's the same with LinkedIn. You can put whatever you like out there, but actually, who the hell's going to see it? There's a lot of people who write stuff for friends and associates, people they already know, which is lovely, and for random people around the world. But it's not very focused. So I run a LinkedIn masterclass. I have the next one this Friday, the 13th of September. If you're listening to this live in the morning, get in touch if you want the details, although I've been blogging about it on LinkedIn for a while, to help accountants get value from the time they spend on LinkedIn, including those who just want to have a profile that works for them and not doing anything else. That's perfectly valid too. But I'm taking away the myths, the misconceptions, removing the hype, looking at it as it really is.
So sorry, just to reiterate, I know you can't give it all away. What are some of the myths and misconceptions?
Well, one of the myths is that you should post a lot consistently, and it's called post and pray. You post stuff and pray that people are going to come and see it, and they're not. You're not going to reach the people you want to reach just by doing that. It makes as much sense as going into a pub, standing on a chair and shouting out and telling people what you do, or talking about your social activities with people who don't know you. Yeah, never share. My advice is never share anything more on LinkedIn than you would share with strangers at a business networking event.
You know, this is one of the reasons why I started the show, right? That's one of the reasons why the podcast is. I got tired of people just blurting out random personal stuff with no insight, no interest. Like, I don't care what you had for lunch last weekend.
Yeah,
I don't care.
it's but there are people out there telling them to do that and to do stuff like that, or to post consistently, and somehow magically your target audience will see it and think you're a brilliant accountant. That's not how real life works. But I was listening, and I listened to a lot of LinkedIn experts. There's a fabulous conference each year in Birmingham, as it happens, called Uplift Live. I'll be going again next March, and one of the speakers last year, I think, said that she does a lot of LinkedIn videos on YouTube.
Okay.
Why does she put them on YouTube rather than on LinkedIn? Well,
Why?
blindingly obvious. She's looking to engage people who are not yet on LinkedIn. So I'm looking to engage accountants to help accountants understand what they could use LinkedIn for, how it could shortcut the whole business networking process, how it could enable them to get more advocates in their area without them having to go to networking events, for example, and how they could get more of the clients they really want. If they're not already on LinkedIn, sort of proof of my earlier point, they're not scrolling through stuff on LinkedIn to look for this advice. But if they're Googling this advice or even asking ChatGPT, they're going to find stuff on YouTube. So I need to be on YouTube. So I put a couple of LinkedIn videos, also a couple of videos on LinkedIn couple of videos on YouTube of how to use LinkedIn and what not to do as well.
I'm not going to profess to be a LinkedIn expert. One of the things I've noticed doing this podcast, LinkedIn is not a huge fan of video. That's why FM, Flabonga Month on the Cube, is also on YouTube. And I can give it a prime example. I can add a short from one of our clips today, and I'll publish to LinkedIn and YouTube at the same time. LinkedIn will get 100 impressions to our short. And I kid you not, some of my shorts on YouTube have got thousands of impressions, but people have actually viewed it, right? And I don't know why LinkedIn does that, and that's their prerogative. But again, sound advice: use other platforms.
The thing to remember at LinkedIn, there's more than one algorithm. There's dozens of algorithms that are operating on LinkedIn. I've created a document which I give to people who come on the masterclass, identifying over 70 different factors that can impact and influence the reach of your posts or your shorts or anything that you share on LinkedIn. And some of it is obvious with the benefit of hindsight, but certainly with many years' experience. And it pulls together everything that you see and hear elsewhere, but puts it into context and says, you ain't never going to be able to tick all 70 boxes because over half of them are outside your control. I could speculate as to the reasons why a short about the FM pod doesn't get a lot of impressions, which probably won't be wildly surprising. But it's because, quite simply, it's because people are busy and scrolling through their feeds. Mm-hmm. And depending upon who you're looking to target, and you have a quite ephemeral, that's not quite the word, vague target audience for the FM pod.
I do.
And that'll be part of the issue. And remember that impression numbers, A, they're not wholly reliable, but B, it's a vanity metric. So if I get 80,000 impressions or 88,000, the most I've got on a post on LinkedIn, great. But actually, when I checked, most of the new connection requests I had on the back and most of the reactions were from strange people around the world who are not part of my target audience. So what's the point?
Yeah.
So
my best performing post of all time is when I complained about fizzy drinks bottles or drinks bottles being connected, the lids being now connected to the bottle. That post took off. And loads of people agreed with me, but had nothing to do with what I do or FM or Creston Reeves or anything I do. People enjoyed it, but yeah.
And it's just stop the caps being ingested by marine life when the bottles go in the sea.
Well, also now the caps are now fully recyclable with the bottles before. They never used to be. They used to be made of different plastic, which is absurd, but they were.
Yeah. You said you were going to ask me about MTD, and we're running out of time, so I will tell you briefly.
MTD, question mark, go.
Making tax difficult, some might say. But do you really want me to talk about Mark's training difficulties or Mark's tax diary?
Yes, I do actually. If you've got got 3-4
Yeah,
minutes, go on, please. Go on.
I don't have really time for that. At the most recent online meeting of the Sole Practice Club, the members had asked if we could talk about communicating and billing for MTD, communicating MTD to clients and billing MTD. I put a post up afterwards summarising some of the key points that came out of it. What was shocking for me was I've been running the Sole Practice Club for 3 years now. It was the first meeting that we'd had online where I had to do some research beforehand because I'd never talked about MTD. And fortunately, I was able to still add something of value in the way that I like to generally with the Sole Practice Club. But fortunately, the members were able to wax lyrical. And my main role was to A, stop them from going off on a rant, and B, to pull out and highlight the really bright ideas that came out of it, including one that I'll finish with, Dale, which was when it comes to pricing for MTD, if you're having a conversation with clients about that, and they're saying they can't afford to pay you anymore, maybe that is a lead in to having a conversation with them about their pricing, and that could also then lead into evidencing the way in which you're able to give advice beyond just doing the day-to-day compliance work. And I thought that was a really valuable way of getting some value and seeing a plus side to MTD.
That's fantastic. Thank you.